now turn to our big focus story. Unprecedented student suicides in Tamil Nadu that we've been reporting continuously. Now, certain private schools have decided to shirk off all responsibility in these matters. And in the latest that we are getting is that private schools in Coimbatore literally arm twisting parents to give an undertaking that schools will not be held anyway responsible if their wards commit suicide. Isn't this gross insensitivity on the part of the schools to absolve themselves of all responsibility in cases where students become suicidal? Isn't it a joint responsibility of teachers and parents to understand and ensure mental well-being of students? Simply trying to wriggle out, trying to insulate themselves from any responsibility. How fair is it? Shockingly, this displays a level of nonchalant attitude and, what is worse, a cavalier attitude towards the highly sensitive issue of student suicides. Remember, whether it is the NEET issue or other issues owing to which student suicides have become a major cause of concern. Instead of addressing this problem and its frequent occurrence, what private schools are doing is simply passing the buck to the parents. In this case, of course, the Coimbatore District Administration has intervened and has asked the schools to withdraw any such directive given to the parents. But let's discuss this issue with domain experts, with people who work with children. Schools now have been told that they will be held responsible for safety of students inside the premises. Let me welcome here on the program Dr. Sudha, Acharya, who's a chairperson of the National Progressive School Conference, and Dr. Saranya Jaikumar, who's a member of the State Commission for Protection of Child Rights. Thank you so much, ladies, for joining us. Good to have women panelists on my show. I want to begin with you, Dr. Sudha Acharya. You are the chairperson of the National Progressive School Conference. You are someone who works with the issues related to students. Getting an undertaking signed by parents stating that the schools cannot be held responsible if something happens to their children, directing parents not to ask for compensation, is this something, in your understanding, a fair proposition, or do you think this is unfair pressure tactics and the schools simply trying to shift responsibility?
School should be the most safest and happiest space for learning. So no school's administration, neither any teacher's action should direct any child to take this extreme step. I do not agree with collecting unconditional undertaking from parents. We cannot absolve our responsibility if something untoward happens inside the school premises. But again, I'll tell you, if the child is not able to cope up with the expectation of parents, self, peer, and at large societal expectation, not able to cope up with studies and taking some kind of step like that. So where does the school's responsibility starts and ends? But I would not agree with unconditional undertaking collecting from parents. This is not done. We cannot absolve our responsibility because we are responsible for safety and security of each and every child who is entrusted to us by the parents. And instead, the school should have mental health program, peer education program, wellness teacher, which are in place, given by as a chairperson of NPSC, we are delivering qualitative, sustainable and inclusive education. So it is a part of our schooling that if any child needs counseling, our school should provide ample opportunities to label their emotion, expression. Children should come up and express their emotion. They are going through some challenges, some difficulties. Schools should provide opportunities how to tackle with them. So instead of doing that, collecting, undertaking from parents, I would not agree at all.
Absolutely, which is why we are outraged by this and which is why we are questioning this, that here is an issue which is an issue of grave concern for a state to have this kind of, we're playing out the recent cases in the month of July and August, as many as 4 to 5 cases reported of student suicides. We know how NEET has been one of those issues where students have been forced to commit suicide. Dr. Jaikumar, in this case, the government has intervened that no such directives can be issued. As a member of the State Child Rights Protection Commission, where does the school responsibility begin? Is it not the responsibility of the schools as well to get to the bottom of the matter and see what is prompting students to take this extreme step? Rather than isn't that simply to brush this issue aside and say, let parents handle it, we are not to be held accountable? Isn't that absolutely infuriating?
Definitely, because see, schools and the education business itself is supposed to be noble first and then commercial second. But today it is all upside down. Schools are running for money. And now these problems are rising. They want to safeguard themselves first. It is very insensitive that few schools have done this. But I think they have wrong legal advice. Such undertaking is not going to help these schools in any way. They have to understand that. For example, if there is a teacher who's insanely scolded a child, given that child mental trauma, and then this child goes on to suicide, you think an undertaking will help? No, not at all. So I think it's just like a herd behavior that all schools are doing this. But I want to record here that these undertakings are not going to help them in any way. And it is the duty of the school to take care of children properly, impart good education, take care of their mental health, all of it together.
Because there will be an argument, that if an incident has not happened in the school, then the school cannot be dragged in. Even if it has happened in the school, it may be because of pressures at home, the school cannot be held responsible. Dr. Jaikumar is making a very important point here, that even if you have an undertaking like that, it is not going to help you legally. Dr. Acharya, do you agree that this is just, a one way of pressurizing parents? That makes sure that
I somehow agree with her, but
yes.
Again I'll tell you that recently, just in the month of July, in Delhi NCR, one suicide happened where a mother scolded the child to be regular with the school, to concentrate on studies, to watch TV less, and the child committed suicide in class 10th. And the school was harassed. What happened? School had no inkling. But fortunately, parent came forward and said that I scolded and the child was not concentrating, so the child committed suicide. So sometimes it happens that maybe in adolescent age, especially in class 11 and 12, there are multiple causes of children getting depressed or...
I agree with you, Dr. Acharya. It could be multiple causes, but why should the schools ask themselves to be absolved from any responsibility? Why are they afraid of scrutiny? If the schools have not done anything that could be taken into account for a particular suicide, that should be a matter of a fair investigation. The school should not try to insulate themselves. I would like to play out some voices that we have from citizens of Tamil Nadu, what they have to say. Let's listen in first.
See, as a common citizen, the school has a moral obligation to the child that studies inside. So they cannot, they are responsible, in fact, but you cannot trust responsibility on them. So they cannot go ahead and collect letters from parents stating that the school is not responsible. They are responsible, but if there is an incident, then the outcome of the inquiry will decide on what is happening. But other than that, I think the school has a moral obligation to the child and they are responsible. There's no two ways about it.
See, today we are sending our kids to the school to study well, and teachers needs to build a lot of confidence on the student, and it's the whole responsibility of the school, whether whatever happens, because like if you take 24 hours, kids will be with us for like 7-8 hours in the evening, but the whole day they are in the school. But teachers needs to take care of the kids. They need to teach a lot of confidence. They need to make aggressive on their studies, so nothing will happen like that. So government needs to take an action against this year.
The school management should give the protection to the child.
So what do you think of these letters, sir? They're telling that they cannot be held responsible.
They cannot issue letters like that to the parents. They have to interact with the parents and take the correct decision.
So, Dr. Jaikumar, obviously the larger sentiment, public sentiment is that the schools have a moral obligation towards the mental well-being of the students as well. Bulk of a time of a student, and I have school-going kids and I know, bulk of the time of their day is spent in school. If there is anything troubling the child's mind, it is actually also the responsibility of the school to find out and inform the parents, isn't it? Do you think that it's a collective responsibility, or do you think the schools cannot be held liable? Here the issue is also of liability, which is what the schools were trying to shirk off.
See, generally, when it comes to suicide, I think it depends on each case, okay? But as a whole, if you look at it, as you very rightly said, children spend most of their day time in school, okay? So whatever is happening in school actually does reflect on their personality, on how they look at themselves, their life. There have been cases where children come from a very, very bad background and families, as such, parents fighting, father drinking, things like this. But they have a good life in school. There are teachers who support them in school. So these children are able to study well. They are able to develop themselves. See, on the other hand, if there is a problem in school, all the time this child is facing some problem in school, some teachers are cornering this child is being judged for not being able to study, things like that. Many a times children don't come back to talk about their failures with their parents. That is a problem here. Parents should also be open to listen to children, because these days I don't think teachers are equipped enough to handle mental health. Schools need to have psychologists, school counselors who have a degree in psychology, who have worked with child psychology, and that cannot be teachers. Many schools are doing this mistake. They're telling that they have teachers who have educational psychology in their B.Ed course, in their M.Ed course, and they're able to handle this. No, teachers can never become psychologists. School counselors are different, teachers are different. CBSE guidelines also very clearly says, please have school counselors. I think many CBSE schools are having it. But in places like Tamil Nadu, in government schools, we don't have separate counselors, and we are recommending to the government for the same.
That's a very, very valid point, Dr. Jaikumar, and I'm glad you've hit the nail on its head by saying that this is an issue that needs addressing on the part of the government, on the part of the school management, on the part of the teachers and the parents. This is not an issue that, you can just simply say that we should not be held responsible. Dr. Acharya, do you also see the gross insensitivity on the part of these private schools? They have become more commercial. They do not care about the mental well-being of the child. Why shouldn't there be an effort instead to come together, create an enabling environment where no student would ever develop suicidal tendency? Why is that not a mission?
I believe that every child can learn and thrive if comfortable, caring, and compassionate environment is provided. So school is, as I said, it is a happy space, and all of us are working for the betterment of the children, and parents are our partners. They are inside the school. So we keep informing continuously the child's growth, and we create a learner's profile. What is happening, the behavioral change, any attitudinal change, anything, the grades are falling, the child is remaining aloof, any flagging sign, any warning sign, we immediately call parents and inform them, so that parents also take care at home. So family and school is a beautiful partnership. We must work together towards the betterment of the children. There is no competition, or we should not have a situation where there is a lot of suspicion that school is not doing properly or parents are responsible. It is not like that. It is a shared responsibility of school and parents together. If we work together, then I think no child would be directed to take this extreme step. I cannot justify asking parents for this unconditional undertaking. I do not justify that at all.
Okay. Quick last word from you, Dr. Jaikumar. Now going forward, as somebody who is in a responsible position in the State Child Rights Commission, what is the message that you would like to give these private schools?
Private schools should focus more on distracting children from mainstream education, not looking at them as commercial objects. Every time we see schools having banners outside with students' pictures with how much marks they've got, this is not business. So they have to understand that these children have emotions. They should be distracted from full-time mainstream education into, things that is happening in the world, in science, in space science, and whatever is happening in sports. Only these distractions will reduce academic distress. Otherwise, children are going to be extremely stressed. And along with the parents, I think they have to join hands. This is not about who is responsible, you or me. It is both of them. They have to understand.
Absolutely. That. Joint responsibility, collaborative effort, a spirit of cooperation. That is what is expected of parents and teachers when it comes to helping these students who might have mental distress.
Last line.
Go ahead, Dr. Acharya.
Let's accept our children unconditionally rather than expecting from them. Let's accept, respect their dream of life, what they want to achieve, instead of imposing our aspirations on them. So let's accept our children unconditionally rather than expecting all the time from them.
That imposition, that sense of competitiveness, unhealthy competition, often imposed, really causes a lot of mental distress. But that is the issue which needs to be addressed, not this way, by issuing a directive to parents that please take care of it and don't blame us. That is not the right attitude. I think we had a great conversation. Thank you, Dr. Sudha Acharya and Dr. Saranya Jaikumar, for joining us on this program.
Thank you.